Just finished up Twin Peaks: The Return, and I'm not sure what I feel about it. Was I riveted? Yes, absolutely. Was it a compelling watch? It was. Was the ending everything I hoped for? No, it was not. In fact, they actually went out of their way to answer less questions than I had anticipated, while seemingly raising thousands more with this season. I'm going to go through some of the, for me, the red herrings, the things that you thought would lead somewhere and then they didn't lead anywhere, and wonder if this was all part of like the grand plan or if they were just making it up as they went along. I mean, knowing David Lynch, this is part of the grand plan to not answer anything, but I want to go through some of the things that you really thought were going to go somewhere and then didn't end up going anywhere. Spoiler alert, for those that didn't watch the finale, please watch and come back. But let's get to it. Okay, the clear box in the room that was owned by the rich guy that was being monitored 24/7, it never explained why it was there, what the purpose of it was, what it was there for, who mauled the person that was watching it, his girlfriend or whatever she was. There was nothing really that came out of that after its purpose of eating up the first couple episodes. There was really nothing that. I mean, did they explain? Did it something I missed? Where they explained who owned the box? What was the purpose of it? Because I missed it. I did not. Yeah, nothing really came out of the clear box other than moving the story along by an episode. Maybe I missed something. I mean, if you want to leave a message in the comments below and just let me know if there's something more to it than what I gleaned from it, but what I gleaned from it was not much.
Can you please tell me what's going on?
Okay, red herring number 2. Everything that happened in South Dakota, just about everything, from the finding General Briggs' body but not his head, to the teacher getting arrested, to just, I mean, him having a website with coordinates and then he met him and all this stuff. In the long whole, now that you've watched all 18 episodes, was any of this anything other than killing a lot of time? That's I don't think it was. I think it was something moving the story along. There was some little nuggets here or there, but it was basically just moving the story along to its benefit, to the benefit of killing time. Basically, the whole South Dakota thing was basically the equivalent of the guy sweeping in the bar for like 10 minutes. That was only happened over like 8 episodes. So, okay, let's do some more. Shelly and Bobby's daughter's whole storyline. The whole thing that they were drugged out. They kind of teased it that maybe she'd be like the new Laura Palmer, that somebody'd find her somewhere. That the drugged out husband was having an affair with someone else, and then he may have shot himself, or maybe he didn't, or just the whole character arc, the whole thing that took up so many episodes, once again, was a broom in a bar, because it never led anywhere. There was no point to it. There was no point to even have Shelly and Bobby separated, and then Shelly was dating the guy that was like the drug dealer for Audrey's son. What the purpose of that was, I don't know. Maybe to give Bobby more sad, so he could act sad in a couple more scenes. Like I don't know what the purpose was really. I mean, is this Lynchian? Is this something just to get you to pull, like, this had more red herrings than Lost, and that's saying something. There's just long storylines for almost the entire that took up episodes, that took up long portion of episodes that never went anywhere. There was no purpose to them. It's fascinating to me. I mean, that's a David Lynch thing, I understand, but it's incredibly fascinating to me. And maybe they went somewhere. Is there something more that I'm missing that everybody else is seeing? To me, it never went anywhere. We're gonna break it all down. David Bowie is a tea kettle. What happened to everyone? The fact that there was no mention of Donna, what happened to Leo, anything about Josie, or any of the other kind of cliffhangers that came from the old season, because it didn't really matter. None of it really mattered in the long run. If you actually watch the finale, you find out that there's not much that actually mattered, and definitely nothing in terms of answers for anything, because there were not too many of those. There were a few, but not too many. But we're gonna all break it all down. We're gonna break it all down.
There's James staring at you a bit. Does James have a thing for you? Something wrong with that guy.
There's nothing wrong with him. James was in a motorcycle accident. He's just quiet now. James is still cool. He's always been cool.
All right, let's finally settle this debate. If this truly is the end for Twin Peaks, if they don't get another season, let's settle it all here right now. James was never cool. I feel like that Shelley line was basically, in that moment, we should have all known that we were getting played, that we weren't going to get any ending whatsoever, because factor in the original Twin Peaks, Shelley was older. Like, she didn't hang around with James and Donna and anyone. So this James was cool. James was always cool. She never interacted with him, as far as I remember. So he was never cool. He is a friend with the gardening glove or whatever the hell that is on him that is cool, but he is not cool. And he did nothing to prove his coolness on the entire run of this thing. So that right there, everybody should have known that that we were getting played by the end of this, because that was episode 2, and it was right at the beginning. We should have all known that we were getting answers on nothing. If Shelley tries to point out that James is cool when he is clearly not cool. Also, was the purpose of James liking that guy's wife just to show off his friend's superhero ability before it came into the point where he had to use it? I was trying to think if there's any other reason why that storyline existed, but then again, there were so many storylines that the whole purpose was to carry on the show that even Albert and the attractive FBI lady, even their entire run for the most part, other than, like, Gordon could have arguably done everything by himself except for shooting fake Diane. That was the only thing, I swear, that and occasionally Albert would throw in a line or two, but he was an original character, so he's allowed that. But there was really no purpose to the majority of the characters that appeared. It just kind of stuff that led nowhere, which is just, I mean, I guess it's not surprising. It's very Lynchian, as most things are, but it just, there's things that you'd read into and you thought it would go somewhere, and you thought this would go somewhere and that would go somewhere, and none of it went anywhere. It's funny when you look back on it and see all the stuff that you thought would go somewhere just not go anywhere.
Sammy looked at it, and it's fine.
When?
About 2 hours ago.
Well, I wish you would have called me. I've been just waiting at the house in case Dad needed a ride somewhere.
Hey, you remember Sheriff Truman's nagging wife? Oh yeah, me either. That was in episode 3 or 4, and she showed up a couple more times and nagged him and then disappeared, hadn't come back for the rest of the series. Once again, another, like, time filler, and not even like a funny time filler. It's not like Waldo, which is Andy's son, which was Michael Cera, which was incredible. But I mean, he was pointless, but he was pointless in a funny and good way. This is just pointless in a weird, pointless way. I don't get, like, this like didn't carry the story along. Like, there were a lot of red herrings of things that carried the story along, and then there was this, which was just basic filler. Basic, pointless filler to fill an hour. I don't understand the purpose. All right, let's talk about Dougie, one of the few characters, there was at least new characters that I actually really liked. I'm sure a lot of people didn't like him because they wanted Cooper back. But Dougie Jones, Mr. Jackpots, whatever you want to call him, was great in its simplicity. In the fact that all of the other characters kind of talked their way around him, and he interjected occasionally when the point was needed. But even just the characters around him, other than to fill Dougie's storyline, which actually I think, if I look back, was the only completed storyline from like beginning to end that was promised. I mean, I guess, yeah, I think that would be the only one. Come to think about it, that was actually like fulfilled. Let me think about that. As much as I love Dougie and he was a great character, I mean, it wasn't something that kind of went a few episodes too long. I mean, even that, you'd think you wanted Cooper back a little bit, especially given how it ended. You kind of wanted Cooper back a little earlier just to have some more Cooper, some damn fine coffee, some apple pie. He didn't get to do any of that. He drove a lot. He did get to drive a whole lot. Even finally becoming Cooper, he still drove an incredible amount of the time. In fact, the majority of time he was Cooper, he was driving Cooper, because that's basically all he did. So I would have liked to seen Cooper back a few episodes early, but I did enjoy Dougie. Probably, I mean, I don't know if it's just me that enjoyed Dougie. If everybody enjoyed Dougie, but he was probably one of my favorite characters from The Return. In a show of alternate universes and kind of disjointed, cloudy endings, the Norma Big Ed storyline wrapping up in really the best way it possibly could was the closest thing to a happy ending I think that anybody got, except for Dougie and Janie E and Sonny Jim. This was, at least for the fans of the show, kind of like their wrapping up like one of the main storylines that they could wrap up in arguably the best way possible, and including Nadine and Dr. Amp, Dr. Jacoby, who now sells gold shovels, and Nadine just basically walking away, which was interesting arc for. I mean, it was great for Norma and Big Ed, but for Nadine's storyline, I guess it worked for everybody's storyline, but that was the sole purpose of their storyline. Dr. Amp and all his scenes of him selling and hawking gold shovels to Nadine, who then turned around and used that to divorce Big Ed, who then he could marry Norma, was the purpose of their storyline, and that worked. I thought that one was okay. So I don't know if this was a I mean, for the end result, it was great for the time invested in that to get to that end result. I didn't mind it. I liked Dr. Jacoby. It was great. Him and Nadine's interaction was fantastic. So that's one of the very few things of Twin Peaks that actually went somewhere and had a closing end to the story. Ashley Judd's character, who was the assistant to Ben Horn, who was like kind of like teetering on having an affair with him, a husband in a wheelchair. Remember that whole storyline that disappeared after like episode 6 and never went anywhere? It's another one of those odd things that like ate up time, and there was no real purpose to it other than eating up time. I don't understand some of the reasoning on some of these characters that they introduced. I mean, some of them had a purpose, but a lot of them did not. if there was any reason to hold out hope for a Twin Peaks season 4, I think it's the story of Audrey. They introduced Audrey very late in the season. It was season 12, episode 12 or 13, and basically it was just arguments with her husband about leaving the house, and that she didn't leave the house. And then obviously people online and things were starting to speculate that maybe there was something, where she was in a coma, and leaving the house would be like leaving, like leaving her coma state or something like that. There were a lot of speculations as to what was going on with her. But then she actually showed up at the bar, and did her whole dance thing, which was the whole sequence, as you saw, was kind of odd. But then the wake up moment when she realized, or wherever she is, whether she's in like a nut house, or there was really, for one of the main characters on Twin Peaks to really have not even closure or resolution, but no true explanation as to what happened with her. I mean, everybody else kind of got some form or fashion of like a semi send off, or at least some acknowledgement. And she, she was certainly in scenes, but she never interacted with anyone outside of her husband. And really, the whole thing was eventually, everybody was thinking that maybe, once Cooper saw her or something like that, there'd be something. But they never actually got together, saw each other throughout the entire thing. And that was kind of one of the main hooks of Twin Peaks, and definitely the Lynch directed Twin Peaks ones were those stories. So it was very odd that they wouldn't put those two characters together at any point. And you'd think there's a lot more meat to bite into in regards to the Audrey story, to see kind of what happened to her, because we don't really know, and they never explained it. So if there's any hope in having a Twin Peaks season 4, I think there has to be some explanation as to what's going on with Audrey. I'd be fascinated to know, and I'd watch it. So Philip Jeffries being a tea kettle, or transforming into a tea kettle, or whatever that was, especially in the old, whatever, I can't remember what those guys were called, the guys that had like the coal all over them, the God of Light, the ones that like ate people's heads for some reason, and then they just did nothing to anybody else the entire run. That's another thing that just kind of never went anywhere. They seem to be able to revive or do something to Mr. C like they have done on several occasions, but that was almost the only hook to them being there. That crazy, weird Lynchian episode of the atomic bomb and all the other stuff, that whole episode that really kind of was just out off the beaten path on a show that's already off the beaten path. There was just nothing really came out of it. It was very strange, but that's a common theme coming through these, is that it was very strange. But that's another sequence of events and episodes and things that never, there's a couple sequences that move the story along, but for the most part, there was no purpose or place to them being there. So episode 17, the episode prior to the finale, I thought was really good. Maybe one of the strongest ones just of the entire run of Twin Peaks, season 1, 2, and 3. There was never really the showdown that we were kind of led to believe between Cooper and Mr. C. Like, he came like later, in fact. It was basically the kid with the gardening glove that his whole purpose was to be like a superhero. And he ended up saving more than one character's day. But then once all the characters were there and Coop kind of said his goodbye, it kind of left a lot of people hanging. I mean, not even Gordon Cole and Albert and everybody at the sheriff's department and thing, they just kind of left them there. Like, they didn't really, there was no real resolution for any of those characters. Not that I necessarily expected them to be, but there really wasn't anything beyond. Just, it was kind of like, well, we did it, and now I'm going to go and sort this out. And somehow it went back to Laura Palmer, which was, even that, in a sense, was very strange, other than Leland saying, "Find Laura," in the lodge. That was really the only thing to tie episode 17 to episode 18. In episode 18, I don't understand I mean, I mean, as a David Lynch thing, it's hard to kind of look in to find certain things, but I don't understand the direction of episode 18. Yeah, he found Laura Palmer. He knew it was Laura Palmer. And then they end up driving the whole episode, even stopping at a gas station to kill a nice 3 to 5 minutes. And then finally get to, they actually get to Twin Peaks, past the RR, do the other things. They go to the house. Somebody else lives in the house. I had to read to find out that the lady that owned the house, that gave the name, was apparently one that was used by someone in the White Lodge or some other type of thing. But there was a nice hook at the end where Cooper and Laura started to figure out kind of what's going on, but the problem is that we as a audience don't exactly know what's going on, so it doesn't help that was the finale episode. If that is the finale of Twin Peaks and that it's just going on in a circle, is not a fulfilling end by any stretch. Don't get me wrong, this was a compelling series to watch. It definitely hooked you in. It was incredible, but for that to be the finale ended up being woefully disappointing. I mean, it's it's one of those things where it's the Sopranos fading to black. It's other things like that where it's something that it's left to interpretation. But I don't know. I wanted at least some resolution. Give me something with Audrey. Give me something with Coop, bringing him back only to have him be in this relentless cycle or circle with Diane or, whoever they ended up actually being when they went through this time warp. And how did they know the time warp was exactly 430 miles away and where that took them to and why? It was the whole thing was just, it raised so many questions and very few answers. But then again, I'm explaining the entire Twin Peaks and not just that particular episode. But I mean, it's a compelling watch. I'd watch it again. I'm really hoping for a season 4. I'd like to see more with Audrey. I'd like to see if some of the storylines that they put out there kind of went somewhere beyond that. There's certainly meat to bite into. I think they should do it, but then again, if they leave it as it is, then, I guess that's what we're left with, although I will be disappointed if that's the case. But tell me what you think in the comments below. Let me know if you liked it, if you did not like it, if the finale disappointed you. I mean, it did for me because I thought 17 was really strong, only to have 18 be just a letdown. But leave a like or subscribe if you want to see more TV reviews, recaps, things like that. And this was therapy for me to try to get, to want to put it out there for anybody who watched Twin Peaks to kind of come here to determine if it's something that, if they felt the same way, if they felt vastly differently, if they thought they explained more, if I was missing something. Please let me know that in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye, guys.